Custom components. Today we are talking about custom components. And this is going to be the almost last one in the series. We already talked about the helper, the mixin, the plugin, and today the custom component. And next week we will talk about a comparison, when to use what, and what exactly you can use Mixins plugins for. And but today it's custom components, and let's just get right into it. So again, I prepared a bit. I started here with adding two new buttons. One is to create a window and another to create a static window. So the first button will open a window and the second will open almost the same. I named it static window because I can't move it. I already have scrolling out of the box. I can't resize it. If you take a look at the other window, I can move it, I can resize it. I do not have scrolling out of the box. So where's exactly the difference? And why is this about custom components? This one is a custom component. This one is not. So let me just open again the static window and dive into it. So my static window, this one is supposed to be a custom component. For both functions, for create window and for create static window, I'm creating the same window, I'm just changing the X type. So in here, I'm using the X type and the title static window, and both of them get a width, a height, everything is exactly the same, but there's a huge difference. You saw that before. So why is there a difference? The difference is this one simply has the standard window X type. This one I created on my own. It's just a few lines. It's just saying, get the standard window and change some configs. Closable faults, so we do not get this X up here. Draggable faults, resizable faults. Modal means that we do have this in front of a black darkened window overlay, and auto show true. So in here we do have to say at the end show. Here with the static window we don't have to. Scrollable and on mask click just destroy the window. So whenever I use this X-type static window, I'm getting all this out of the box and I do not have to retype all these different lines. Yeah. So if you would by default create this, you would always have to say, okay, I want to create this and I always have to add all these lines. And it just blows up the code a lot. So if in your application you're always using this type of window, then just create a custom component and you always will have it out of the box. If you're using something like static window or whatever, you could also name it my app window or whatever. So this definitely helps a lot, and this already is a custom component. So if this is a custom component, then my main view definitely is a custom component because I'm just changing some of the configs. Items is a config, layout is a config. So basically, whatever component you're creating, it is a custom component. It's getting a bit more difficult the higher in the hierarchy you start. So let's go here for the container. The container, or let's go for panel. That's even easier to say, panel. Starting here with panel. So the panel comes from container, that one from component, and that from base. So the higher in the hierarchy I start, the more difficult it is to create a custom component. Let's go for this component here. If I'm going for this, you can see, let's go back for a second. You can see here are tons of items which are inherited, mix-ins, requires, and stuff like that. In here, the list is shorter. And for the widget, it's even getting shorter. So the more up in the hierarchy you create your own custom component, the more difficult it gets to create it. This one, the main view, for most of us, it should be pretty standard to create these type of views, having items, defining X types in there with sub items and whatever. So we should be pretty familiar with all these. That's standard basic stuff for ExtJS developers. But this one is definitely really easy to understand if you're familiar with ExtJS. And it makes a lot of sense to have a set of items which are for your application customized and you always reuse them. It should be the same with text fields, stuff like that. If you reuse text fields always, then you might have a custom CLS class for your text fields and all these things. So that's easy stuff to understand. In here, I created a spinner container. A spinner, this dialing thing on top of everything else. And I started with the widget, which allows me to define exactly how my DOM element should look like. If we use a window, we are not creating how the DOM structure is. We just taking it for granted that ExtJS delivers cool window for us. But if we are creating our own expert custom component, where we define exactly the element, how the DOM element should look like, then it gets a bit more interesting. So let's dive into that just for a second. So I'm creating a CLS. I can add a tag to it. In here, it's just div out of the box would be the standard. I just didn't want to have it empty in here. That's why I added the tag. And then I'm adding references. You should always have an element reference, but in here, in addition, I'm having an inner element reference. And in my constructor, I can say this inner element, which is exactly getting the inner element from here. And I can do lots of different things with that. So I can customize this more and more. And that is the beauty of the thing. So if you create your own custom component based on a widget, as in here, or based on a component, you will have more possibilities to really ensure that your DOM looks exactly what you would like to have it like, instead of taking components created by Sencha, which probably do not really do what you want. You might want to have an on-off button, and it's not exactly working, or star system. It's probably not exactly what you wanted, what Sencha delivers you. So you want to come up with your own star system, different stars to let others know how happy you're with the content. Same as in here, if you subscribe, I know that you're happy. But with the star system, which you custom created, you can match it exactly to the position where you need it. And that allows you, using these element stuff, exactly to come up with your own CLS, which defines, okay, I want a flex layout, I want a grid layout, whatever you would like to have in there. you most likely don't want to go the same path as Sencha Classic goes, with everything absolute defined, positioned. So then you can create your own cool custom components, and that's exactly what I wanted to talk with you today about today. And yeah, basically, if you have a window, all these different things which you change make a component, a custom component, which you can reuse over and over again, which should match what you would like to see in your application. If you want to take a real deep dive into creating a custom component, then you might want to define how the DOM structure should look like. And that's basically all you need to know about custom components. So to wrap things up, next week I will come up with some Excel stuff and compare things, and when to use a mixin, when to use a plugin, when to use a custom component, and when to use a helper. Where are the differences? We already talked about all these things the past couple of weeks. If you missed something of that, just look through my channel. You will see it says basic and then something. So this is a mini series about all this, and I hope you fully understand now what a custom component is, and that you will come back next week. So see you next week. Bye.